Chapter 4. Story Event. Each unit of story has a story event, a one-sentence distillation of what's happening and what value is changing. If the story grid method is like an MRI scan, it should give us the ability to find our story problems quickly. We should be able to use it to immediately find broken story bones or damaged story tissue. We create this scan by summing up thousands of words of a story unit into a single phrase or sentence. We call this phrase or sentence the story event. Below, we'll look at story events at the scene level, first looking at The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and then at Pride and Prejudice, and The Silence of the Lambs. We use 4 questions to help us generate our story event. Number 1. What are the characters literally doing? That is, what are their micro on-the-ground actions? Are they going on a walk? Are they blasting off for Mars? Are they running from a monster? You don't have to overthink this one. Simply write down what is literally happening in the first scene of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Uncle Henry, Dorothy, and Auntie Em see an impending cyclone and prepare for its arrival. Number 2. What is the essential tactic of the characters? That is, what macro behaviors are they employing that are linked to a universal human value? Figuring out the essential tactic is a bit trickier. We do a lot of things automatically, without thinking about why. Digging into the essential tactic of a character will require you to think about the things we do and the way we do them to get what we want and need in the world. Here are just a few common essential tactics. To convince a friend to take a big step. To assure a loved one of our devotion. To get a liar to admit the truth. To sell someone on a great idea. To seduce someone. To humiliate someone. In the first scene of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Uncle Henry safeguards the livestock. Dorothy safeguards Toto, and Auntie Em safeguards herself. Number 3. What universal human values have changed for one or more characters in the scene? Which one of those value changes is the most important and should be included in the story grid spreadsheet? After we have a sense of what happens, what the characters are literally doing, and the essential tactics of the characters inside that story event, what they are really trying to get from another character, we'll be able to figure out what universal human value changed from the beginning of the scene to the end. In the first scene of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, all the characters' lives are threatened. The value changes from life to possible death for all of them. Identifying the most important value change in a scene is sometimes difficult. The scene begins on the ground and ends quite literally in the air, which threatens the life of the protagonist. The choice is clear. We'll track life to death in the value shift column of the spreadsheet. When in doubt, the story grid rule of thumb is to highlight the value that best aligns with the progress of the human value at stake in the global story. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is an action story, which has a global value at stake on the death-to-life spectrum. Throughout the story grid spreadsheet, we'll track the ways life is threatened or supported scene by scene. Number 4. What story event sums up the scene's on-the-ground actions, essential tactics, and value change? We will enter that event in the story grid spreadsheet. After we've completed the analysis of the scene, we can use our answers to construct a one-sentence story event description. In the first scene of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the story event we can put on our spreadsheet is, a cyclone lifts a one-room Kansas farmhouse off of the ground with a little orphan girl and her dog still inside. Finding the story event in Scene 1 of Pride and Prejudice. 1. What are the characters literally doing? That is, what are their micro on-the-ground actions? Mrs. Bennet shares the latest news from the neighborhood with her husband. 2. What is the essential tactic of the characters? That is, what macro behaviors are they employing that are linked to a universal human value? Mrs. Bennet is trying to get Mr. Bennet to seize a great opportunity for their daughters, but Mr. Bennet is trying to have a bit of fun at his wife's expense. 3. What universal human values have changed for one or more characters in the scene? Which one of those value changes is most important and should be included in the story grid spreadsheet? Mr. Bennet's enjoyment turns to annoyance when his wife reminds him of his duty to his daughters. Mrs. Bennet's hope that she can get one of her 5 daughters married turns to despair when her husband refuses to visit an attractive prospective son-in-law. Because the global genre is love story and Mrs. Bennet is trying to bring lovers together, hope to despair is the best choice for the value change. 4. What story event sums up the scene's on-the-ground actions, essential tactics, and value change? We will enter that event in the story grid spreadsheet. Mr. Bennet refuses his wife's request that he must visit a rich, eligible bachelor. finding the story event in Scene 1 of The Silence of the Lambs. 1. What are the characters literally doing? That is, what are their micro on-the-ground actions? FBI Section Chief Jack Crawford and Clarice Starling are having a conversation in his office. 2. What is the essential tactic of the characters? That is, what macro behaviors are they employing that are linked to a universal human value? Starling wants to make a good impression. Crawford wants to manipulate Starling into doing a dangerous task. 3. What universal human values have changed for one or more characters in the scene? Which one of those value changes is most important and should be included in the story grid spreadsheet? Crawford shifts from having no options to having a good option, but also from a mentor to an exploiter. Starling's universal human value shifts from ignored to chosen when Crawford offers the assignment. Ignored to chosen is the value change we add to the spreadsheet. 4. What story event sums up the scene's on-the-ground actions, essential tactics, and value change? We will enter that event into the story grid spreadsheet. FBI trainee Clarice Starling is summoned by FBI Section Chief Jack Crawford and assigned an interesting errand. For more help in crafting scenes that really work, take a look at Essential Action, the Key to Compelling Characterization by Ann Hawley and Leslie Watts, which is available at storygrid.com/essentialaction key compelling characterization. You'll also find some great tips in building better scenes, a StoryGrid podcast episode here. Storygrid.com, one scene at a time.